And we start with some overnight news this morning. Bernalillo County Sheriff's deputies are investigating an overnight shooting in southwest Albuquerque. It happened around 11 last night. Our crews on scene were told by a deputy the victim is a former deputy. BCSO has not confirmed that. The department does say, though, the man was watering his fields when he was hit by a stray bullet. Right now, they say he was not the intended target. Stay with KRQE News 13. We'll bring you the latest as it does come into our newsroom, on air, online, and through our KRQE News app.
Happening today, the man accused of opening fire and killing 9 people in a South Carolina church is expected to be arraigned in court on murder charges. We're also learning more about what happened inside the church during the shooting. A survivor's friend describes what she was told happened.
He told one of the elderly members, he asked her, "Did I shoot you?" And she said no. And he said,
"Good." He asked her if he had shot her.
Yes. And she said no. And he said, "Good, because we need a survivor, because I'm going to kill myself."
According to USA Today, this is the most deadly church shooting in more than 20 years. The 21-year-old suspect is Dylan Roof. Coming up in our next half hour, we're going to hear from a woman being credited with helping to catch him. The situation in Charleston may be a slightly familiar one for some here in the metro area. You may remember in April 2013, Lawrence Kapner stabbed the choir director at St. Jude Thaddeus Church because he thought the man was a Mason. He then stabbed 2 people who tried to stop him. He was sentenced to 5 years in prison.
We turn now to this. We are staying on top of the Espanola Fiesta crown controversy. Happening today, the Fiesta Council is expected to decide whether or not the reigning Fiesta Queen will be allowed to keep her crown. The crown and scepter passed down to Alreinas were stolen from Angelina Vigil's house. Detectives found it. They charged 2 people for the crime, but now Vigil could lose her crown again. This after comments Vigil posted on Facebook immediately after the burglary that has some in her community upset. She said in part that she hates coming to that town, but then she quickly removed the post and apologized.
Living in a community, you expect everybody to be like family, especially for it being so small.
Espanola police arrested 20-year-old Josh Vigil, his 19-year-old girlfriend, Eva Ortega, for the theft yesterday. They are looking for a third man in connection with that burglary.
6:04 developing this morning. The FAA is looking into what caused a deadly paragliding crash in Taos. It happened near the Taos Regional Airport. Eyewitnesses tell state police 69-year-old Herbert Waterhouse took off from the airport yesterday morning, flying west, and appeared to circle around. They heard the engine make a revving sound and saw the pilot flying back toward the airport before nosediving. Waterhouse is from Arroyo Hondo. Funeral services for former Lobo standout Daryl McGee are scheduled for tomorrow. McGee died almost a week ago today. Doctors say the 47-year-old suffered complications from a severe stroke he had 3 years ago. While at UNM, McGee started 3 years as a point guard for the Lobos, and during that time in the late 80s, he averaged 5 assists per game. The funeral service is scheduled for 11 a.m. in Corpus Christi. If you're interested in helping the McGee family, you can learn more on the KRQE News app. Meantime, an Albuquerque woman who lost her son to addiction is helping other young adults get their lives on track.
But she's not doing it alone. The city and state, they're playing a big role. News 13's Catherine Mazzone is in the Newsplex with the details on this. Good morning, Catherine.
Good morning, Crystal. It was almost 4 years ago when Jennifer Weisberg lost her son Cameron to a heroin overdose. She tells me she put everything she had into getting him help, but in the end, all the treatment facilities she found came up short.
For 2 years, we fought this demon. He called it the devil. I mean, it really kind of was like a stranglehold on him, and we sent him to treatment. We tried everything that we could, sunk every dollar that we had into trying to help him.
Burke is the executive director of Serenity Mesa, a youth recovery center. It offers individualized treatment services for young adults ages 14 to 21, everything from housing and food to education, therapy, and life skills. The facility received funding from the state and more than $250,000 from the city. Mayor R.J. Berry says it's money he hopes will save lives.
We know that when people get into an addictive lifestyle, that there's lots and lots of services that we as taxpayers end up footing the bill for. And we know, even from our homelessness initiatives, that if we do the right things and get people stabilized, that it's actually less expensive for us as taxpayers. That's not why I'm doing this. I'm doing this because I think it's the right thing to do.
Serenity Mesa is headed up by the nonprofit Healing Addiction in Our Community, a group founded by concerned family members wanting to raise awareness about opiate addiction. Back to you.
All right, thanks, Catherine. Now, to learn more about the services provided by Serenity Mesa, Just head to our KRQE News app.
Look at this. New signs are coming to the UNM duck pond. We're going to show you that in just a second. They're going to say that bread is bad for me. These signs are suggesting that feeding the ducks, it might be better to feed them things like halved grapes, cracked corn, birdseed. It's all part of UNM's sustainability campaign called Love Red and Live Green. Right. Want to keep the ducks healthy. It's been 2 weeks since 2 convicted killers escaped from a maximum security state prison, and authorities are still on an active search this hour.
And now the pair's escape has landed them on the U.S. Marshal Service's 15 most wanted fugitives list. Meanwhile, things at Clinton Correction, the facility they escaped from, are getting back to normal. Officials have lifted a lockdown. Visitors will be allowed again starting today. Inmates are eating in the mess hall rather than their cells, and some are now returning to work assignments there. We turn on to this. A carjacking caught on camera in Detroit opens up some emotional wounds for a family already mourning the death of a loved one. In the video, you can see a man with a gun come up to the driver. Immediately, the driver, he just takes off. Luckily, he was not shot. His family says his best friend and cousin was recently killed during a carjacking, and that's partly why he immediately gave up that vehicle. Police say there have been an uptick in carjackings in that area, and that has to be very scary to know it's already happened to somebody you know and you love, and then to see it happening to you.
That's a natural reaction then to one.
And we start with some overnight news this morning. Bernalillo County Sheriff's deputies are investigating a shooting that happened around 11 last night. Deputies were called out to the area near Coors and Ramac Road. Our crews on scene were told by a deputy there the victim is a former deputy. According to BCSO, the victim is a man who was out watering his fields when he was hit by a stray bullet. Right now, they will not confirm if he's a former lawman, but they do not believe that he was the intended target. The victim was taken to a local hospital with non-life-threatening injuries.
A number of people in Albuquerque have been hit by stray bullets in recent years. In July 2012, a woman driving on I-40 near the Big I had her windshield shattered after a bullet went through the window. In May 2013, another woman who was leaving Sunday Mass at San Jose Church was hit in the head by a bullet. Police say somebody must have shot a round into the air in that case. And then there was Andre Davis, the father, who was killed when a stray bullet pierced his apartment door in 2011. Just this year, his family was awarded $12 million from the property for not doing enough to protect tenants. Stay with KRQE News 13. We're going to bring you the very latest as it becomes available on air, online, and through the KRQE News app. Time is 6:32. The man suspected of opening fire on a prayer group in Charleston is set to be arraigned and charged with murder today.
Dylan Roof has a bond hearing scheduled for later this morning. He was caught just hours after the shooting the night before. News 13's Catherine Mazzone is in the Newsplex with all the details. Good morning, Catherine.
Good morning, Crystal. Listen to how this man was caught. A North Carolina woman spotted Roof and recognized the description of his car. That's when she asked her boss to call police, but it didn't end there. She then followed the accused killer for more than 30 miles.
I was scared. And I mean, he wasn't driving that fast when I seen him, so, you know, and if it's not meant for me to catch him, I won't catch him.
Well, thanks to Debbie Dill's tips, police caught Roof. He waived extradition and he's already back in South Carolina to face charges. Roof is accused of shooting and killing 9 people at a black church in South Carolina. A friend of Roof says he reconnected with him just a few weeks ago, told him he wanted to hurt a bunch of people and that black people were taking over the country. Roof's friend says the accused shooter used birthday money from his parents to buy a gun. He waived his rights to an attorney, so he'll either represent himself or hire his own. Back to you.
All right, thanks, Catherine. Roof was arrested earlier this year on drug and trespassing charges. There will be a vigil in Albuquerque for the 9 victims Sunday at 5 at the African American Performing Arts Center.
President Obama is speaking out about the tragedy in South Carolina, touching on his feelings on gun control.
Once again, innocent people were killed in part because someone who wanted to inflict harm had no trouble getting their hands on a gun.
The Department of Justice has opened a hate crime investigation into that shooting. And this morning, we want to know what you think about President Obama's comment. Do you agree with his statement that you just heard about gun control? You can go to KRQE.com right now and let us know. And we're showing you, displaying here the results. A few votes in already this morning on the poll. Everyone so far that has weighed in has said no. That poll will be up for just a little bit longer, so you can check it out and weigh in yourself.
And support for the victims and frustration over what happened in Charleston is still pouring in this morning on our KRQE Facebook page. Julia writes, quote, "May God comfort those who are grieving about this horrible crime. Joseph logged on and wrote, "My heart and prayers go out to the victims and their families, but we've also heard from those left frustrated over the events, calling to end racism." Melissa writes, "There is only one race, the human race." We want to hear from you. Just log on to our KRQE Facebook page and lend us your voice this morning. We turn now to this. An Albuquerque woman says she is now in fear for her life, and she's putting part of that blame on the district attorney's office. April Lopez says her ex-boyfriend, Jake Cariaga, threatened her children and pushed her into a wall in October. He was charged, but in court this week, a judge dismissed his case, saying the prosecutor failed to identify him in court by having the victim point out the defendant. She says the DA's office's mistake led to her accuser being let go.
It was awful. It was terrifying because now I have to fear. Now I'm in fear of what he's going to do to me and my children.
So we asked the DA about this. She said she regrets the circumstances and has talked with the lawyer who was on this case. To hear more from her, go to our website, krqe.com.
636, a county employee is getting paid for 40 hours of work, but she's not in the office 8 hours a day. So where is she? Nobody really knows. Noelle Sawyer is the personal assistant to County Commissioner Lonnie Talbert. On special assignment, Kim Holland poured through her time cards, personal calendars, as well as records from when Sawyer entered and left the building. Many weeks, she comes in after 9 and leaves after a few hours. So she is paid for 40 hours a week. Talbert says she's out in the community serving the constituents.
So how do we know she's working 8 hours a day?
We trust. We trust the people that work for us. We trust.
If the calendar does not show the meetings that she's attending and the time cards don't show her actually being there, then the taxpayers deserve to know where she is spending her time.
We'll never know if Sawyer has actually been working 40 hours per week because there is little documentation as to where she's been. No proof, and only a few meetings she says she attended that are listed on the county calendar and her personal one. To see the entire story, visit the KRQE News app. New Mexico's Secretary of Education says students will soon spend less time taking standardized tests. Hannah Scandera talked with the Clovis News Journal yesterday about the controversial PARCC test. She was in town getting feedback from teachers and administrators. Scandera says next year the department will reduce the average PARCC testing time by 90 minutes. Scandera is traveling the state as part of an ongoing outreach program.
And sticking with education, we checked this morning and nearly 2,600 people have signed an online petition in support of a lawsuit against the teacher evaluations here in New Mexico. This comes a day after a judge ruled there is enough new evidence suggesting the evaluations are unfair, so the case can move forward. The Public Education Department had asked a judge to toss it out. The evaluations are based on test scores, classroom observations, and lesson plans. For details on the online petition, look under KRQE links on the KRQE News app. We turn now to this happening today. The men accused of conspiring a terror plot to help ISIS are expected in court.
Yeah, prosecutors are expected to ask that the men be held without bail. A federal grand jury indicted David Wright and Nicholas Ravinsky. Both men were charged last week with conspiring to provide material support to terrorists by plotting with Boston terror suspect Usama Rahim to behead blogger Pamela Geller. Rahim was gunned down by investigators after he lunged at them with a knife. Authorities say the three were initially going to kill Geller, but a few days later, Rahim called and told the men he wanted to kill police officers instead.
Take a look at this new video this morning. Shows a bridge in Pennsylvania collapsed. 2 construction workers were still on it as it went down. Nearby surveillance cameras captured it all. There was 1 worker below who was injured. The other 2 on top received only bumps and bruises. Crews are investigating the wreckage, and they'll decide on how to proceed after they determine how it collapsed in the first place.
Scary moments, and that thing could have tipped over too on top of it.
Absolutely.
Wow. Missing